Hi, everybody. My name is Sarah Stevens, and I'm the program coordinator for the campus engagement team at the Duke Alumni Association. But more importantly, today, I'm here as a part of the class of 2020. I completed my master's degree in liberal studies. And yesterday, I participated in my Zoom ceremony, as I'm sure a lot of you did. So now that our exams, papers, and classes are all over, what does life look like as a Duke alumni? Today, I'm joining 3 Duke alumni from various graduate and professional schools to show our new grads a window into their future world as Duke alums. So let's kick off the panel introductions with Vijeth.
Hey guys, congratulations to everyone. Happy Mother's Day to those graduates that are also moms. So my name is Vijeth Iyengar. I attended Duke from 2010 to 2016, whereupon I got my master's and PhD from the Department of Psychology and Neuroscience in the grad school. At present, I'm a policy advisor at the White House Office of Science and Technology Policy. I came to Washington, D.C. in September of 2016 as a presidential management fellow, working on broadly policy for older Americans in terms of their services and supports and programs and initiatives around that vulnerable population. In terms of my Duke engagement right after Duke, I immediately served as the grad school rep on the Duke DC Regional Board, served there for about 3 years, and then transitioned to the Duke Alumni Association, the DAA board, the global board in Durham. It's been a fantastic time post Duke, and just looking forward to imparting some advice and hearing other stories from the panelists. Thanks.
Awesome. Luis, do you want to go next?
Got you. Hey, congrats, grads. Awesome accomplishment. And again, to repeat what Vijeth said, yes, moms, happy Mother's Day. We're celebrating here with my wife, who's also a mom of 3. So big day for everyone. Look, I graduated with a master's in public policy in 2014 from the Sanford School of Public Policy. I live in Portland, Oregon, and now where actually I work in the field of corporate social responsibility. And I got here through an internship that I got in between my first and second year of the MPP that I had at Nike. So in terms before that, I mean, I'd like to think I was basically the Latino Austin Powers, but probably not really. I worked in, I traveled the world, and I worked for the U.S. government as a foreign service officer. So essentially managing U.S. foreign assistance and foreign aid in different countries. And I was, I was a Peace Corps volunteer, and spent some time working with some NGOs abroad, working on social impact programs. And before my current position, I led corporate social responsibility initiatives at Walmart. And in terms of my Duke engagement, I'm on the board of the Duke Alumni Association Board of Directors. And I'm also a board member at large for the Duke University Hispanic, Latino, and Alumni Association. So obviously we'll dig deeper on all this stuff with me and all the other panelists, but always happy to help and answer questions about any of that.
Awesome. Amy?
Hi, everybody, and congratulations to you all. My name is Amy Young. I'm currently General Counsel and Chief Privacy Officer of a technology and big data company called Lotame. I graduated from Duke Law in '06, and at least professionally speaking, clerked in the Delaware Court of Chancery, worked at WilmerHale for a few years at a law firm, and then went in-house first with a video game company to help scale them up to become a global worldwide publisher with a number of their brand franchises. After that, becoming general counsel for an innovative big data company that focuses on social media and its impact, particularly in times of crisis like this with the pandemic, on initiatives that then help bring together a lot of data points in abstract ways. Helped a company turn around at ComScore, and am now at my technology company here. In terms of Duke, was student body president when I was there as a student, and did a lot of other work with Gypsy and a few other organizations. After that, I served for many years with and alongside the Duke Law Boards, and I'm currently with Vijeth, colleagues on the Duke Alumni Association representing the broader alumni population, for which, congratulations, you are now a part of. So glad to be a part of this today.
Awesome. So we heard a little bit from each of you about how your experience at Duke prepared you for life after graduation. What kind of things are you passionate about right now, and how did Duke help you get there? And we could start with Amy if you'd like.
Sure, that's absolutely fine. You know, a lot of my initiatives focus on community. That was a big part of my work and volunteerism at Duke Law School, and then continues to this day. I have focused in large part on businesses. There was a great program that had started while I was there, but then helped build called ESQ that really put in touch a number of alumni together with current students to give them an opportunity to understand what it was to practice as an attorney, as well as to understand what you might see and to give a little bit of visibility into different career paths. And so that work continues today. In fact, have a number of interns that I am hosting over the summer, which I'm really looking forward to do in part through fellowships and otherwise. And then of course, with the pandemic, there's no time like the present to then also help local communities. So I'm in a number of discussions with the university right now. For those who are coming into DC, we've got a lot coming up with the Duke DC board here in terms of connecting alumni with current students, for which you guys are all a part of. So really looking forward to building that connection. And thanks, Sarah. That's part of my, I guess, commitment and continuing opportunity to engage with the university.
I would say that a burgeoning interest while I was at Duke was this idea of how do we apply what we know from science, what we know from technology to public policy? How can we tweak existing public policy to improve its uptake, its efficiency, its effectiveness at both the community, at the federal level? And it's quite an interdisciplinary problem. It involves individuals that have scientific backgrounds, individuals that have policy backgrounds. For me, I was a neuroscientist by training. I got that training at Duke, but also I was very much interested in how do we apply what we know about the brain to how we apply, to how we tweak and design and develop public policy for individuals that might be going through stress, trauma throughout the course of their livelihood. And that requires an interdisciplinary problem. And Duke by its design and how the departments speak to one another and how the types of research and development it prioritizes and focuses on promotes that cross pollination of ideas. And so that was very important to me. That was a great training ground for me in terms of bridging ideas, synthesizing opinions that differ or that might be complementary in nature from different fields, and then being able to then apply that synthesis to advising policymakers here at the federal level. So, you know, I would also say that stepping back at Duke, I was part of the GPSC on the executive board, and that provided exposure to many different backgrounds from students from Sanford or Fuqua, and having those different perspectives, adopting that, even cultivating friendships from that, just provided that rigor and the breadth and depth of issues and that exposure that's helping me today.
Yeah, that's so, you know, for me, when I was kind of a career changer when I got to Duke. So for me, you know, the greater good and social impact and community impact was always my guiding light. And it was always something that I was very passionate about. And I had gotten different kind of slices or views of it, lenses, if you will, working with an NGO, working with volunteer organizations, working with the federal government. And I really was interested in public-private partnerships and kind of what that looked like. And, you know, there's folks that do what I do that, you know, get their MBA. There's folks that do what I do that get their MPP, which is a master's in public policy. Fortunately, Duke has both. But, you know, folks also get in my field also have a master's in environmental management, which is also at the Nick School. So for me, kind of being able to interact, take classes with, you know, across all of these different areas of kind of doing good, particularly from kind of a corporate perspective, was really, really helpful. And I made a lot of great relationships, and obviously ones that have helped me, get to where I am today in terms of jobs and these types of things, but also just in terms of camaraderie and kind of friendships. And that's really important as well. I would say in terms of kind of the one of the key things that I learned when I was there, at least was reinforced, was I feel like a master's in public policy is the art of getting stuff done, right? Because you can have the best idea in the world, you can be the smartest, there in your organization or whatever. But when you work in large organizations, at least where I come from, right? I mean, Walmart's, 1.3 million. The U.S. federal government is huge. Company I'm at right now is also very big. So you need to be able to take whatever idea and whatever project and kind of run it through this huge matrix. And those skills that you get, I think some of the ones that I practiced during my MPP, and that they were just very good about going above and beyond the actual analysis of whatever you were doing, and actually thinking through and talking through how you get stuff done. How do you get it across the finish line? So for me, that was very helpful.
Wow, that's awesome. So it's kind of related on that spirit. What is the one thing you wish you had known after graduation?
I'll, because I'll follow the sequence that we had for the last question. So I'll go first. Look, and this is very relevant for everyone, is that you don't have to have a job when you graduate, right? Like, you just don't. And that is the one thing that I wish I had known, right? Because I was stressing big time when a lot of people around me during their first and second year internships that were lucky enough to kind of land a job after that, or who had just kind of, been lucky enough to kind of use their networks and get something. So, I kind of stressed about that a little bit. I tried to keep an open mind about it, but, at the end of the day, it was fine. I mean, and thanks to Duke and the network and kind of all these informal and formal relationships that I had there, I was able to land something, and I landed a great job at Walmart, doing, corporate social responsibility, and it was fantastic. So, I guess that was one thing that I wish I would have known, is to not stress out so much about that.
I would echo Louise's point and just say, don't stress about having a timeline either, especially now. Things are so fluid, things are so variable that operating on a day-to-day has been really useful to me. And having those big picture goals, 1 or 2 goals that you want to really drill down on, and abandon these ideas of a 1-year plan, 2-year plan, 5-year plan. For me, that was creating more stress. And I was in a different state, right? I really wanted to have a position right after grad school. I was pursuing a non-traditional route, not going your typical tenure track route, and going more towards policy, right? Being in one of those few buckets where scientists can inform and meet with policymakers and lawmakers. And I think what was interesting now is that, especially during COVID, is that you have to really, for me, it was really day to day, right? And focus on how to win the day, and how to accomplish and be the best person you can during the day, and abandon these ideas and of timelines or anything like that. So, I mean, there's a luxury of imparting that type of advice after you've gotten the job, after you've gotten that position. But I really would emphasize just taking a beat and understanding what's your values, what drives you at the end of the day, what type of situations do you thrive under, especially now, to just take a couple months or however long it takes, and really understand what environments you thrive under, and then make a decision to lead towards whatever particular opportunity that you encounter.
Those are really great observations from both Vijeth as well as Louise. And one of the challenges, especially on the professional and graduate school side, is that these are degrees that, at least for us, we have already gotten sort of the baseline bachelor's, et cetera. And so you're almost doubling down in the amount of money that you're putting in, and then the perceived value that you're getting out. And it can be frustrating. And I'm not to not to sound like I'm echoing what both Vijay and Luis have said, but the truth of the matter, and I wish it's quite possible that somebody might have actually mentioned this to me, but that I wasn't in the mindset to hear it. But your career takes many different turns, and to think that somebody has a straight path is more than likely not true. And that I think is one of the areas that I didn't necessarily hear, or that I didn't know, or that no one had told me, because especially for law school, the assumption, especially at the time that I graduated, was that you would clerk and then you would go work in a law firm and so on and so forth. And as it turns out, that is the path that I ended up taking, but it was not a path that everybody took. And there was a lot of frustration related to whether or not you would be able to get that, or did you want to do that? And for me, I spent a lot of time to figure out whether or not I did in fact want to work with a judge. And it turned out that that was what I wanted to do. But many things since then about my path have not necessarily been what I expected. And a career and finding a place where you thrive, to Vijay's point, to be in a place where you can have such large impact, to Luis's point, is an iterative thing. And we are all so super smart, bright, detail-oriented and strategic thinkers alike, that will come to you. And part of it is just going through that path. So wherever you end up starting doesn't necessarily matter. The path is for sure twists and turns, and that is in fact what a great career makes.
Oh, thank goodness. 3 out of 3 panelists say you don't have to have it all figured out. So I think I just heard a whole collective sigh of relief from every single student that just graduated this weekend. But we do get help, like we get by with a little help from our friends. Do you guys have any good stories about a fellow Blue Devil who helped you along the way?
I'd love to answer that first. In fact, one of the business law society events that I helped put together, called ESQ, and that I mentioned, had alumni come together with students to then just pick their brains and understand what it was to practice, particularly on the business law side, because that wasn't a prevailing part of the curriculum at that point in time. I actually continue to follow up with one of those alumni, and years down the road, I had a choice to join and go into the video game company, which at that point in time was a very, very risky choice, or at least it was a perceived one. And so he spent a lot of time on the phone, especially in particular on one weekend where he was and his family was hosting this huge family reunion barbecue, and yet would call for 15 minutes and say, hang on, I got to hang up now. Let me call you back in 30 minutes. And he continued to have that dialogue of whether or not this was the right choice for me. And if it weren't for his thoughtfulness in terms of just thinking through issues or how I would feel about it, and giving me a chance to be proactive about what this could mean or what the possibilities could be, it then gave me a much clearer picture as to whether or not I wanted to take this turn or not. And he was, in fact, one of the people who said, look, your career is a journey. And so this is just one more step. The question is, do you want to take this step, or do you want to take advantage of the step that comes after this? And so he was fantastic. And if it weren't for him, I don't know whether or not I would have taken this opportunity, because it gave me the strength to be able to say, actually, yes, I'm going to swim against the tide and take this opportunity. But he was also completely readily available for people to, like me, to give him a call and for him to take the time out. And it was just phenomenal.
Vijay, you want to go now?
Yeah, no, I'll be brief. I don't have a particular story. I will just say that the community at large, the Duke alumni community at large, I've found has been, in the DC community, and I'm sure this is nationwide, or even globally for that matter, has been open and willing to jump on a quick call, grab a coffee when you could, right? Get on a Skype or Zoom and just hash out your your concerns, your thoughts, ideate, brainstorm with you, connect, provide resources. And that's always been gratifying. And I will say coming to DC, the months before I defended my PhD in May of 2016, I must have cold emailed and cold LinkedIn messaged hundreds of Duke alumni. And this process predated the alumni network. So I didn't have that advantage. Now you guys have that advantage, shameless plug. But everyone was open to, even if their LinkedIn account was premium and they're sort of behind some sort of protection or wall, they were open to just grabbing a coffee or even just having a quick conversation, as I mentioned before, in terms of how what I should expect coming to DC, what the networking situation was like, how you build relationships, how you sustain relationships, how you advance within the federal government. And that was really important to me because I didn't go to Sanford School, right? I went to the graduate school, and also at that time I was seeking advice from a lot of career counselors at Sanford, and they were also open for a non-Sanford student to come and bug them with questions. And so I found that incredibly important. That's sort of held true even today. Folks that I reach out to, or even folks that are reaching out to me, as soon as they say Duke, if I see that Duke in their intro, there's more of it's a more of an impetus to reach back out and help them.
Yeah, I'm gonna pick up on that, Jeff. Duke is a fascinating and a unique place for as prestigious and kind of how accomplished graduates are, alumni and students and everyone, administrators, everyone. It maintains a really small feel. I don't know how to explain it other than people are willing and able to help you out. And look, I mean, I went to graduate school 2 times. The first one, was at Harvard, right? And like big place, prestigious place, nowhere near the amount of community. And, to echo what Vijeth said, I mean, just folks willing to help you out, and I've seen that, I've experienced it, and I'm obviously paying it forward as well. The other thing I'd say is, I'm in Portland, Oregon. It's not like there's not a hotbed of like Duke graduates, right? But I will say this is that maybe the further you are away from Duke or your time out, it's not about graduate, you went to the graduate school or you're an undergrad, you're just a Duke grad, right? And look at yourself that way and be proud of it. And I'm telling you, there's great community out there, both socially and kind of professionally, as Vijeth was saying. And I've got a lot of those stories as well professionally, but I was kind of on the public policy side, and I sought counsel from people in Fuqua and others, and still in touch with people to those days, or to this day. Last thing I was going to say is, in terms of a person that's helped me out, like there's a guy, Chris Simmons. I love him, and he's one of our lobbyists for Duke. So works in Schoenfeld's office, and it was really just a relationship that I built with him when I got there, and it was through a contact of his that I got my resume kind of at least looked at Nike, and they get 70,000 applications for internships, and they certainly don't give many away to Masters of Public Policy students. The majority are MBAs. So at least I got my it was a huge leg up to kind of get that going. I'm still in touch with Chris to this day, and that was amazing because it's why I'm here now. So
that's so awesome. So I've ran into Duke people all over the place, mostly in the airport. Do you guys have a time when you connected with an alum in a really unexpected place?
Well, I'll say this. I mean, unexpected, to your point, Sarah, I was flying into Indianapolis and I was wearing my Duke gear, and I tend to wear a lot of Duke gear when I'm traveling. But I mean, I'm sure everybody on this call has experienced this. You have Duke gear and other people have Duke gear, and I'll say something like, "Go Duke," or "Blue Devils," whatever. And somebody will either be like, "Yes, totally," or they'll be like, "Sorry." You know what I mean? Like, why are you talking to me? And so I always find that really funny. And so I will say that this one particular time, and it turned out it was because I was, headed to the NCAA tournament. There were a few people on the flight. We were, I was wearing Duke gear. Not everybody was wearing Duke gear. And the basketball references and just Duke comments that were just sort of being whispered, somebody would walk by and, hey, Leitner, and it was fantastic. And that's like all of the little stuff. And so if you see me walking down the sidewalk and you are wearing Duke gear, or if I'm wearing Duke gear, I'll absolutely say like, go Duke, or like, let's go Doubles. And that I think takes people by surprise sometimes, but people have done that to me all the time, and it unexpectedly, I think, it starts conversations, and it's really great, especially Vijeth, as you identify in DC. It is a big city where there are Duke alum, and so we have stopped and had random conversations, and it's just been cool. I mean, it's a great community.
Yeah, thinking through some, times where I run into Duke grads, I feel like it's not much, pickings are slim in Portland, but I did realize when I was, interviewing for my current job that my boss went to Fuqua. And so, and then we hired someone else who also went to Fuqua. So our strategy team, within where we're at, we call ourselves the Duke strategy team, and it pisses a lot of people off, to be honest. But I think at the end of the day, it's great camaraderie, and we even got like the Duke Blue Devil sign up in our meeting room. So it's it's been fascinating and fun to be a part of that and linked into that.
I will say, I just have it was with someone that wasn't a Duke alumni, but had a connection with Duke. I was in Rome in May of 2017, in this random bar, beautiful vista at the top of a museum. And there was this lady who I was talking to, a friend, and she commiserated with us because she's also American. We chopped it up a little bit about being from America and just enjoying the city. And we talked about colleges, and she was a faculty at another university. I can't remember, but she had colleagues at Duke. And I think, if I'm remembering correctly, one of her colleagues was on my thesis committee. And so it's a really small world. And but Duke and the community and its extent and its breadth across the world, right, makes it a small community. Yeah, I mean, it was just surreal. Random museum, random day in Rome, and there's a Duke connection.
That is awesome. So, kind of shifting gears here, how do you guys enjoy and experience life outside of work?
This is pre-COVID,
Well,
right?
I mean,
yeah,
exactly.
Pre-COVID.
Go ahead, Amy.
Well, I will say I am a mom, and I have a little one as well. And so these days, life is as most parents are with little ones, which is totally consumed, focused on the little one. And so I end up spending a lot of time doing that. And outside of Duke, I mean, I will say that there's a good portion of my community, of my life, that is focused on Duke things. Either because I drink the Kool-Aid, which probably is true, but isn't the reason why that happens in such high correlation. I mean, there are some, like, there's interesting programming. There's always something going on. Ruth Bader Ginsburg has spoken in DC 2 years in a row. I mean, who wouldn't want to do that? And it happens to be through the Duke connection. But, if it were from another organization, I'm sure that I would have still been doing that. And then I'm a huge foodie. I love food and I love sports. And so my life ends up revolving around those two things as well. A lot of the sports then happens to be Duke, but there's a lot of other sports that isn't. And that's what I enjoy doing, just getting a chance to explore and seeing how people with talented skills far surpassing mine can really put them to great work. And so that's what I enjoy doing, and living life that way.
I'll just echo what Amy said. Similar experiences, given we're both in the Washington D.C. area. You know, in DC, there are tons of museums, tons of cultural activities, tons of opportunities to build relationships, go to happy hours. Duke fostered a lot of that. I had really strong touch points with Duke pre-COVID, even now, right? And especially during COVID, you know, Duke DC at least has fostered a community. I'm sure this is true across many different regional boards and chapters globally. But every Friday or so, I think it's every 2 weeks, there's like a virtual happy hour and folks come together, and that's built a sense of community amid COVID, which I've appreciated. Admittedly, I haven't attended one of those happy hours yet, but certainly there are efforts to sort of bring the community together during COVID, and trying to even as simple as, you know, we got, especially in the DC area, we got emails just checking in, right? Checking emails, which is really appreciated, right? And hopefully that gives you a sense of how strong the community is, even if we can't be together in person during this time.
Yeah, so I'm kind of similar to Amy. I'm also a parent, and my wife and I, we have 3 kids, all under the age of 8. So honestly, we're just trying to stay alive now with COVID-19. Expectations are out the window in terms of what we want our kids to accomplish during this time. But it's good, I mean, I try to keep up with my wife during our Nike Training Club workouts that we do a lot. And it's interesting in terms of kind of, the kind of connecting back to Duke. I mean, obviously, we have, there are many opportunities to connect through kind of the different organizations that I'm in, both DULA and the Duke Alumni Association board. But actually, I found a lot of connection, as I mentioned. Duke Portland isn't really huge, it isn't big, but I did find that there are actually a good number of Duke graduates where I work in my company, and so ultimately being able to kind of start corralling people there and start getting people together for lunches and happy hours. And so that's kind of what I've been doing, has been great, so it's, there are other ways to kind of, go through things and kind of, stay connected to the Duke network. And I should say, just in general, Duke does kind of run pretty deep with us, and that, my son, he took his first steps actually in the quad in between Rubenstein and Sanford at the Sanford School of Public Policy there. And then my little girl was actually born at Duke Hospital, and my wife was working at Duke when I was there, when I was studying. So for us, I mean, we've just got tons of touch points, and I think through all of those, we've kept those up, kind of given that community and kind of the small nature of it. And so there are ways to kind of stay involved, if it's not even necessarily through the, Duke club of, whatever city you're in, right?
Yeah. So we've kind of danced around being in quarantine, and I just wanted to ask you guys, what have you learned about yourself during this time? And is there anything that you feel would be really helpful, especially for the new graduates, that you've discovered about yourself during this time?
I would say in my line of work, things take a long time to progress, and especially during COVID. And so I've learned a lot about patience, right? I'm, as I assume a lot of Duke grads are, very impatient, very ambitious. Those two are sometimes toxic mixtures. You want to get a lot of stuff done very quickly and move on to the next. And during this time, you can get a lot of stuff done, but it's really important. I've learned at least about patience, and everyone is either really busy or they have time and they have other priorities. So being patient with folks, being patient with things that you want to get done, that's one thing. The other thing I've learned is the importance of resilience. And a lot of my friends in the entrepreneur community have always talked about this idea of resilience, going through many different failures within one day or weeks or months, but then getting back up and then going back to grindstone, so to speak. And that resilience, I think, especially now, is especially important in terms of one's mental health, but also trying to get things accomplished and trying to grow and learn and mature in various both personal and professionally, right? And so I would just say patience and resilience. Um, the former being something that I was admittedly a bit lacking in, but now using this time to grow in that area.
Those are really great thoughts. Well, I'll throw this out. I'm an introvert, and so I knew that before coronavirus. But I will say that being an introvert during coronavirus just goes to show it has been really interesting, because I've really, frankly, enjoyed working from home, not having to do with a commute, not dealing with like actually going to happy hours every single day, or because and there was a point in time where I think, for a few weeks, there just really wasn't anything. People weren't scheduling things. And so it was kind of really a nice, exhilarating chance to not have to have to do those types of things that I think extroverts really, really feel comfortable with. And more than that, they really get a lot of energy from. And so it's been a great opportunity for me to sort of actually dig deep, which goes to Vijay's points, which is that I've been in the technology space and have been in always companies that are moving from one place to another. And that's part of the reason why I either joined or why they're now hiring me. And that has meant a lot of adaptability, as well as the resilience that Vijay says. And the last 6 to 8 weeks for a company anywhere has been really, really tough. And even in the software space, where I like to think that we move very, very fast, you have to move even faster, because honestly, it means jobs, it means somebody's internship, and not to be able to move and execute on that very quickly means that you are ending up losing valuable capital and valuable talent. And so that adaptability has been something that I've seen, that I've had to implement, that I've asked myself and I've asked my team members of, and that I would expect, because coronavirus isn't just hitting the software industry, it's hitting every company. All of us are going to be asked in a new way going forward after this crisis. Honestly, I think this bodes really, really well for Duke graduates, because we are all used to pushing ourselves, being adaptable, being willing to change, to have that and work on those skill sets that then build resilience and grit. And so I think it's great. And I do think that that's an area that companies will now sort of expect from their employees. But those are little tidbits that I've certainly learned about myself during this time.
Yeah, for me, it's been just kind of how reliant I have been in my line of work, in just that human connection and seeing people and being with, and actually physically being with people to persuade and influence. So kind of getting to the earlier point about getting stuff done, right? I mean, when you're in a large matrixed organization, there are processes that you have to follow, but then there's lots of pre-meetings, there's post-meetings, there's pre-meetings, and there's folks that work in large organizations, both in the public and private sector, will probably understand what I'm talking about. And I think that relationship building, right, and that ability to be able to persuade and influence and build trust, I think is something that I've kind of leaned in my entire career. And I'm just trying to figure out how to recalibrate that with Zoom and with, kind of not being with people and seeing people. So I think that's kind of, one thing. And then another thing that I've seen, this isn't myself, but I've heard this from a lot of my colleagues, and that, sometimes you just get so kind of, in the zone about what you're doing and what you're getting after and what success looks like, and just trying to go after it, that you stop seeing people as people. You kind of see them as objects and a way to just kind of get things done. And, puzzle pieces or pawns or whatever, just things that aren't real. And I think what this has showed us is that, when you see kids, running up to you in the middle of a call, and you see people having to kind of leave on the dime because something happens. I mean, we're all real, we're all people, right? And so at the end of the day, I think it's given, hopefully given others perspective that we're all people in the end.
Awesome. So for the closing question, I wanted to ask you, what is one piece of advice you want to leave with this graduating class?
So I'll take a crack at it first. So, I think for me, just kind of consistent with what, I've been kind of talking about, I think in my experience, in order to affect meaningful change, obviously it's crucial to have a compelling vision and strategy, and, there has to have to be clear measures and accountability mechanisms. But I think the part that enables everything is actually trust that's built through relationship building, right? And so for me, humility is what I want you to leave you with. It's stay humble, because humility allows us to listen, it allows us to learn, and it allows us to cultivate trust. So for me, that is the big enabler for everything. So just, stay humble.
I would say just be resilient. This is a really incredibly difficult time. Be open to delays in processing of applications, of delays in deadlines, and just go with the flow. And but be resilient. On the one thing I just wanted to say is, um, you know, building relationships is really important. Speaking to Louise and Amy's point, and uh, it's a lot of in-person relationships where you do build that trust. You get a vibe and sense of another person, and they know you're quote unquote real, right? This is a real person I can deal with. And I would just take a step back and see how you can achieve that virtually and digitally, and that could be investing more in your LinkedIn profiles, in your in your brand, so to speak, right? And I'm not a huge fan of that term, but just your digital brand and digital footprint and what that conveys. And I think more and more um, folks are relying on that, right? And especially now where everything's digital and virtual. So I would just take some time to focus on that and what you're trying to convey and the skills from that. And this is a really good time, as things might get delayed, to focus on some of that cold emails, cold calls, and building your network so that when, God willing, things do return to some sense of normalcy, you'll sort of hit the ground running.
Those are all super great points. My thought is this: everything might seem like it's changed, but nothing has changed. And I'm going to say that again because it sounds really weird. Everything might seem like it's changed, but nothing has changed. Like, y'all worked so hard to get to this point, and I know that it's like, wow, I'm leaving the university, I'm graduating, I've graduated, I have a job, I don't have a job, I need to move cities, I'm staying in the same city, all of this stuff. You've already done this. You've already succeeded on this. You've already found the ways and built the tools and done what you've needed to do to get to this point. That doesn't change, and it wouldn't have changed outside of coronavirus, outside of the graduation, outside of the majors that you've been looking for, that you have pursued and sought and successfully accomplished. And so in this moment, like, embrace yourself, because the strengths that brought you here are absolutely the strengths that are going to get you through, that'll move you through your career, that take into consideration the things that I and Vijeth and Louise have identified here. Like, your path doesn't just end today, even though it might feel like it. It might feel like it because of coronavirus. It might feel like it because you didn't anticipate it, but that's just not true. It's just not true. You've got all of the skills, and you know yourself, and you'll absolutely rock it. So what got you here will get you to that next step, just as much as all of those eye-opening experiences and participation and stuff. So, you got it. You know what to do.
Amazing. So I'll make sure to stay humble. I'll be resilient, and I'll believe in myself. This is such great advice. So Amy, Luis, Vijay, thank you so much for taking the time to welcome the class of 2020 into the Duke alumni community. And thank you to everybody who's tuned in to see what being Forever Duke looks like. And finally, congratulations to the class of 2020. I wish you well.